On the last episode of Hops and Gnarly Brewing, I compared 3 yeast strains to see which one is best for my Hazy IPA, but that's only part of the story. On a mission to break down each component of a Hazy IPA by testing best practices and brewing batch after batch. So far, I've brewed 8 different beers, testing everything from water profiles to dry hopping schedules and obsessing over every little detail. Now that I've made my way through each of the ingredients in a Hazy IPA, I think it's time we find out if this effort was worth it. Now, let's make some beer. If you ask the internet what a Hazy IPA water profile should look like, you'd probably find a lot of talk about 2-to-1 chloride to sulfite ratios, but I need a little more brightness than that. For this beer, I'm starting with some local spring water and I'm adjusting the water profile using gypsum, calcium chloride, Epsom salt, and canning salt. I'm targeting a water profile with 150 parts per million sulfate and 200 parts per million chloride. For the grain bill, I'm starting with 60% proximity base malt and 24% oats. But to make sure the mash is a bit more manageable, I'm using half malted oats and half flaked oats. To that, I'm adding a little over 5% each of dextrin and wheat malt for head retention and Vienna malt for color. This will be a single infusion mash and I'm shooting for a mash temperature of 154 degrees Fahrenheit or about 68 degrees Celsius. I'll keep mashing this in until everything is nice and saturated and holding steady at our target mash temperature of 152 Fahrenheit or 67 Celsius. Then I'll let the mash bed settle for a few minutes before starting the recirculation and a 1-hour timer. It can be a little tempting to walk away from the mash at this point and come back an hour later, but I've found that doesn't quite work as well as you might think. Mash conversion is a chemical process and it isn't quite as simple as heating things up to the right temperature. Don't go nuts stirring everything around, but about every 15 minutes or so, rake the top of the mash and make sure the system is recirculating correctly. And if you can't recirculate the mash with a pump, pull a quart or so from the bottom and pour it over the top every time you check in. After an hour of mashing, check the pre-boil gravity and increase the temperature for mash out. After about 10 minutes at mash out temperature, it's time to yank these grains and get our boil started. Okay, we're up to a full boil and our 30-minute timer starts now. It's been 15 minutes and it's time for the first hop addition. Here's 22 grams of Idaho 7, which should start us out at about 6.5 IBUs. I'm also going to start recirculating through my plate chiller to sanitize it. We've been boiling this wort for 30 minutes now, and it's time for the whirlpool. Let's drop the temperature to 160 Fahrenheit or about 71 Celsius. Okay, time for the next hop addition. I'm adding 39 grams each of Citra, Eldorado, and Ricao. This will spin for 30 minutes, and then I'll cool the wort down to pitching temperature, oxygenate with pure oxygen, and transfer everything into my Anvil Crucible conical fermenter.
Alright, hold on, everybody. Hold together.
When I tested yeast strains, I loved the flavors that Imperial Barbarian produced and the haze that came from Imperial Juice. But in the end, I had to go with Juice and Barbarian in the same batch. The next day, things were rocking and rolling, and on day 3, I decided it was time for the first dry hop. I'm adding 41 grams each of Citra, Eldorado, and Ricao. But what I'm most excited about is trying out this enzyme from Lallemand that's supposed to aid in biotransformation. I added about 1.7 grams to this 10-gallon batch. When I hit final gravity, I bumped the temperature up 5 degrees for 2 days. Then I cold crashed, then I dry hopped it one more time, let it hang out for a couple more days, and alright, can we just taste this thing already? I can't tell you how psyched I am to taste this beer. The color is a light straw yellow and it's completely opaque. The aroma is jumping out of the glass with notes of tropical fruit, strawberries, and like this grape aroma that kind of reminds me of Purple Powerade. The mouthfeel is big and bold, and somehow it still finishes somewhat dry. Going in for a sip, it's nice and tropical with a supportive bitterness that brings you right to that somewhat dry finish. And that's where I hit that Purple Powerade note. It's got this dimension that I was missing with some of the other batches I've brewed. And I don't think this beer is the only thing I've gotten out of this experience. While I've spent time getting to know the ingredients that make up a great hazy IPA, I've also learned a lot about process and my equipment. Just spending time practicing with intention is worth it in itself. And it's not like I've mastered this style by any means, but I learned a lot by staying focused on a single style and resisting the urge to change all the variables at one time. I'm stoked to move on to a new style and do it all over again. This episode of Hops and Gnarly Brewing was made possible by these awesome partners. If you like this video, let me know in the comments and consider subscribing so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'll see you again soon. Hey, I'm stoked that you're watching these videos, but maybe take a break and go brew something, or tinker with something, or even clean something. No matter what you do, I think it'll be worth it.